Hi, Grandma Joy here. It's fun to look more carefully. Let's look more carefully at coins today. Coins are in most countries and they're used to purchase items, but you can't purchase much with a very small amount of coin. You can purchase more when a coin's worth more. So they're in all different shapes and sizes and even colors, so you could tell them apart, which is really fun. You might have friends or relatives that have different coins than what I'm going to show you. So you can always ask them to share and look at those coins really carefully. They have so much on them. So let's start with the coin I have here, which is a penny. That's worth the least in the United States of America. It's got Lincoln on one side, and on the other side, it has something else. So it's got different pictures. It has a date. It has words, all sorts of things that could be fun to examine. It's round and flat. And this is worth 1 penny. The next one we'll look at is a nickel. A nickel is worth 5 pennies. So you would have to have 5 pennies to have a nickel, right? So here's the nickel, and you'll notice that it is a little bigger than the penny and it's a different color, right? So if I put them back here, you can see they're really not that big, but you can see that the penny, if I put it in front of the nickel, is bigger, right? So that's fun. You could say, okay, it's bigger. 5 pennies equals a nickel. But then you go to the next coin and it's a dime. And the dime is really pretty and shiny, more than the nickel. It's worth 10 cents, but it's not as big as a nickel. It's not even as big as a penny. If you look at it, it's smaller, but it's worth more, right? It's worth 10 pennies. Then you have the silver quarter, and it's worth 25 pennies. So if you look at that next to a penny, it looks much bigger. And it seems like, well, that makes sense that the quarter would be worth 25 pennies because it's bigger. But you can't always tell by how large a coin is, right? Now, the 50-cent piece is much bigger than the quarter. Here's a 50-cent piece. And if I put the quarter next to that, the 50 cents is worth much more than the quarters. So we have a penny worth 1, the quarter worth 25, and the 50 cents worth 50 pennies. But then if I go to the dollar coin is smaller than the 50 cents piece. So if I put that up next to it, it's a little smaller. So you can't always tell by how big they are. So it can be a surprise. But there's some really fun things. Even though all these look round, there's some fun things about coins, such as if you feel the edge of a penny, if you go over it with your finger or your fingernail, it's smooth. If you do the nickel, it's smooth too. But if you were holding a nickel and a quarter in your hand and trying to figure out which was which, by size, it might be a little difficult because they're about the same size. But if you put your fingernail over the edge of a quarter, it's rough. There's a lot of little edges there, which makes it sort of fun and different. So you can feel and say, well, I could tell that's a quarter. So if somebody gave you a guessing game and put a coin in your hand, if it's smooth on the edge and it feels a little bigger, it's probably a nickel. But if it has rough edges, it's probably a quarter. If you have a penny and a dime, the penny is smooth on the edge But the dime is like the quarter. The 10 cents and the 25 cents quarter both have a rough edge, right? Where you can feel it. So that's sort of fun, isn't it? And then if you look at some old coins, you might say, well, they're not exactly the same, even though they're worth the same amount of money. Like here's an old nickel. It's got a different picture on it. It's got a buffalo. And an older picture with a dime has a lady on it, Liberty. So sometimes you find old coins that have something different, which can be fun, and you can look at them more carefully and say, well, what's that like? Or you could look at a coin from a different country. For instance, here's a penny from England, and it's still called 1 penny. But of course, instead of a president of the United States on it, it's got the Queen of England, right? And she's also on this one, which is a 5 pence, which is worth 5 pennies. So it looks a lot like the dime, right? But in the United States, a dime's worth 10 cents. And in England, the 5 pence piece is worth 5 pennies. You might even get something like this, and it doesn't even have a round. It looks almost round, but it's not. And it's from England, and it's got sort of edges on it, even though it's a roundish shape, and it's worth 20p. You can even get a coin in England that's worth 2p. And in other countries, you get all sorts of coins. So it's really fun to examine with somebody you love and look at them in detail. There's so much to see with them. They're really interesting because of the pictures, and it can be a lot of fun. And I hope you enjoyed looking at coins today with me, and that'll get you started enjoying looking at things more carefully, including coins.